I'm Gary, and this is Coasting with Culture, which is all about combining theme park visits and riding roller coasters with various cultural experiences around the world. After a day that was more about exploring the cities of Florence and Pisa, we get into the final stretch of this Italian adventure as we pay a visit to a couple mid-sized amusement parks, one of which offers a coaster that previously operated in Canada, and the other a coaster that's been all over Western Europe. Then we'll make yet another shameless coaster stop to the south of Rome. After having spent many hours driving between different cities across northern and central Italy, we had one last extended drive south to Rome, which would be the base of our last days in the country. And as we got into our last drive, we made our way to Cavallino Matto, a smaller park with theming that reminded me of Cultus Lake Adventure Park in British Columbia, with many of their decorations and buildings having a cartoonish charm to them. The park features 6 different coasters, or 5 depending on how you count, but we'll get to that a bit later. And while we could have gone right to the first couple we passed by, we decided to head back to their biggest coaster of the collection, which also happened to be a fairly rare ride. Known as Freestyle, this is one of the 4 remaining Togo stand-up coasters left in the world, and the only one that's not in Togo's home country of Japan. The kicker, though, is that it began operation as Skyrider at Canada's Wonderland and operated there until 2014, where it would then move across the Atlantic Ocean and find its new home in Italy the following season. While I've been to Canada's Wonderland before, that came a few years after this ride was gone, and later replaced by their B&M dive coaster, Yukon Striker. While the old North American Togo stand-ups didn't have the best reputation, I found this ride to be surprisingly smooth, and its few moments of airtime made it pretty fun. It wouldn't have been the top coaster in Canada's Wonderland, but if a road like this back then, I might have placed it in the upper half of the park's rankings. The rest of the coasters in the park would serve as supporting rides at larger parks, but they fit this one quite well, as it seems to be the focus of this place is to offer more smaller and mid-level thrills for a broader audience. One of those smaller coasters is Speedy Gonzales, an L&T Systems junior coaster that's a bit larger than other junior models, but offers a similar lighter thrill that can help build the confidence of younger riders for the larger rides. And one of those larger coasters is right next door, their L&T Systems Wild Mouse coaster called Wild Mine, offering the tight turns and quick drops that are common of a standard Wild Mouse layout offered by several designers. We then completed the park's L&T Systems hat trick with a spin on their larger compact coaster, Project One, which has the same layout as Joyride from Powerland in Finland and was featured on the channel during the previous summer's visit to Europe with fellow members of the Buzzbars Coaster Club. It's a ride that offers those who are more timid about coasters a thrill without it being too much, but certainly plays second fiddle to Freestyle at this park. SDC provides the smallest coaster in the park, Topo Zorro, which offers a layout that feels inspired by the common wacky worm, but has a helix following the tiny upper bunny hills, and rolling through a giant block of cheese is a cute touch for theming. In a bit of a chance encounter, it turned out that 2 of our friends, Martin and Cheryl, were also visiting the park that day as part of their own European coaster trip, and their arrival to the park gave us a chance to ride what some might consider a debatable ride, as whether or not it should count as a coaster. Jurassic River, not to be confused with a more iconic ride from a major movie studio theme park chain, offers a number of dinosaurs to see while in line, as well as through its course, like the more famous Universal Studios attractions that it shares its name with. But why would a flume ride potentially count as a coaster? Well, this has 2 lifts with big drops, which isn't unusual for log flumes. However, the first one has a bit of a curve from the lift, and then drops, but comes back up a hill that is much larger than most flumes with a bunny hop before the splash. The second has a larger turn into the drop, and this drop has a double down with a little upward movement going into the second half. Out of all the flume-style rides that people count as coasters, this might be one of the less egregious ones, as it feels like it has a little more coaster to it than SeaWorld San Antonio's Journey to Atlantis. With this being the second water ride of the trip that could be debatable as to whether or not it counts as a coaster, which of the 2 would you say qualifies more? Fuga da Atlantide at Gardaland? Or Jurassic River here at Cavallino Matto? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. The park appears to be growing still, as they had a new raft ride under construction, so perhaps a return visit in the future may be in order. For now though, it was back on the road to our next stop. The drive down to Lazio was quite lovely, especially for the coastal views. But the downside was that we were on a bit of a time crunch, since we left the park a bit later than planned, and many European theme parks will cut off ticket sales an hour or two before they close. As we arrived to Zoomarine, it seemed like we might have that issue, as they had already closed up their cash registers for the day. But with a little back and forth assisted by Google Translate, they were gracious enough to allow us to enter for a discounted rate, so we could ride the 2 coasters in the park. Given that the park would be closing within the hour, we beelined right over to Draki, which was more or less another Wacky Worm style coaster, only with a dragon theme instead. The other coaster here was Vertigo, a classic Schwarzkopf looper, which had spent time at several parks across 5 different countries all around Europe, including Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Spain, and finally Italy, where it once operated at Luniere Park before coming to its current home at Zoomarine. The ride has the same layout as Silver Bullet at Frontier City, meaning it offers the same head choppers and positive G's in the loop that I really enjoyed from its Oklahoma counterpart, making this a ride worth coming for when in the vicinity of Rome. I wouldn't be opposed to a return visit to the park with a bit more time, especially to try out the water park on a hot Italian summer day, and there seem to be a lot of animal exhibits to check out as well, although be warned, sometimes love is just in the air, and the animals might not be that modest about it. Our last park of the day was only a 5-minute drive from Zoomarine, which was another smaller park with some rather well-known faces up front called Fantasiland. This was a bigger funfair kind of park than the others from the past few days, but unlike those others, we seem to have arrived just a bit too early, as they weren't going to be open for a couple hours. So rather than just sitting around, we drove back toward Rome to check into our hotel rooms, get settled in, and grab some dinner from a nearby restaurant before returning for an evening visit. Parks like this pushing copyright infringement always makes me chuckle, but this place takes it to another level when using one of those characters on their park's tickets. But with those tickets, we'd have 2 coasters to ride, including a fairly small junior spinning coaster from Modern Amusement Group that doesn't exactly lend itself to a comfortable experience, as there's not a lot of headroom for taller riders, and the lap bar doesn't have much space between it and the seat back when in the lower position, but you can get some pretty good spinning. The other coaster, called Basotto, comes from a company called CETI, and seems to be another variation of the Wacky Worm layout, but with track that looks more like what you would see on larger coasters instead. The ride is quite similar to those whose layout it follows though. While these parks might not have been the most anticipated of our Italian adventure, it did give us a chance to enjoy 2 solid coasters that had previously operated in other countries, and a chance to get a solid number of coasters for the day. But this would act as a sort of tune-up for what was looking to be the biggest coaster run of our time in Italy, beginning with one of Rome's 2 larger theme parks, before kicking off a run of several quick shameless coaster stops while circling around the Italian capital. Thank you for watching this video from Coasting with Culture. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and click on the subscribe button to see future videos here on YouTube, like these ones which you may enjoy as well. Additional content can be found at coastingwithculture.com, and you can also follow Coasting with Culture on various social media channels at CoastWCulture for announcements, previews, and updates. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care and safe travels.